as always, I miss my lovely Divinez. And today, I wanted to create a couple of lovely juices that are particularly for the divine nurturer, the mama, the mother. And these juices are definitely good in the development of breast milk when it comes to breastfeeding and nurturing the lovely child, the baby. Wanted to share just a couple of recipes. I definitely will create more recipes because I know there's a ton of recipes. And so my son, he is 14 years old, but when he was a baby, I breastfed him. And I definitely read a lot of books about the importance of vitamins and minerals. And these recipes definitely are packed with, you know, different vitamins such as vitamin K, and that's really important when your baby is developing and even when they're born and afterwards. And a lot of other vitamins like vitamin A and C. And so to go over the ingredients, I'm going to be using some kale and some celery. And I'm also going to be using a lovely orange ingredient, which is squash. And I am also going to be using some extra virgin olive oil and some dulse. And this has laver in it. Yes, it has laver in it, but this, of course, it's seaweed, so it has a lot of minerals and iodine, and that's definitely really good for breastfeeding and nurturing the baby. And those are things that I may not put those into my juice today, but I definitely wanted to share it to go with the recipe because it is definitely good for breastfeeding mothers. So let's get into these lovely juices. So the first juice that I'm going to make is the kale and the leek juice. And the extra ingredients that you would add to this to make it that nutrient-dense breastfeeding juice would be the dulse and also some nutmeg. I do not have nutmeg on me right now, okay? But those are the extra ingredients that you would add in the end, that you would whisk in after you strain your juice and you whisk it in. You could whisk in some crumbled dulse flakes and some nutmeg if you wanted to. And so you can also add some squash to this recipe as well. So that's the first juice we're going to make right now. So I'm going to be using the bulb of the fennel, and you can definitely check out my video where I made a juice with fennel, and I will definitely leave the link in the description as well if you want to know that particular video. And I talk more about fennel in particular. And so I'm just going to use about 1/4 of the bulb, and so I'm going to cut that right now. Okay, so I'm going to put the fennel inside, and then I'm going to take about a handful of squash, because for this recipe, for example, if I was, you could also use carrots for these recipes, but I wanted to make something that wasn't so hybrid. I wanted to use non-hybrid ingredients as much as possible. I'm starting to consider that even more so in my recipes. And so if I were to use about 2 carrots, you know, I'm just eyeballing how much squash that, and I'm using a butternut squash today. And I just took a handful of the squash. I love the smell of squash. It smells so good. It's so pretty. It's so nice and orange. Oh my God. Okay, so now we are going to juice that up. Okay, and just because this is YouTube and I love my Divines, okay, I am going to just make another batch because I want to make enough so you can really see it, you know, when we have a drink together and everything, and make sure I have a good serving of it, you know. So we are going to add a little more kale, and I'm probably not going to add any more leek because leek definitely has a distinct taste to it. And I'm just going to add a little more squash. And I just want to make just enough so that you can see a good portion of it. Okay, so now we are going to try it together, okay? All right, so it definitely looks really green. All right, so it's definitely like a lovely green color. Okay, and now remember, you know, these recipes, you know, where I'm using the squash, you can definitely substitute it for carrots if carrots is your thing. And like I said, I am not going to put the dulse and the nutmeg into it because I'm not breastfeeding. My son is 14 years old, okay? And his favorite milk is almond milk and hemp seed milk, whatever milk that I make. So I am just going to have the kale and the fennel and the squash, and we can have that together. Right? Okay. And so again, we have some kale and some butternut squash and some fennel, okay? And it's definitely, you know, a nice, soft sweetness from the butternut squash. And I would imagine if I would, the nutmeg would definitely complement the squash, most definitely. And the dulse, you know, it would have that seaweed taste to it. But you know, maybe later, maybe I'll put some sprinkles of it in there. But be sure, you know, I will put links in the description, you know, of different types that you can get, you know, if you want to purchase maybe some dulse and some nutmeg or something, you know. And yeah, and you want to get some crumbled dulse, you know, crumby. Well, you can crumble it up, you know. Yeah. And so I would definitely say this is amazing, you know, the kale and the squash. I'm going to be juicing squash more, okay? Definitely. The more spring comes, I'm going to be doing all type of things with squash, okay? All right, so let's make the next juice. Okay, the next juice that I am going to be making for my divine nurturers, my breastfeeding mothers, is, you know, it's going to have celery and it's going to have squash. And this recipe, you could use carrots if you want, but I'm just going to put more squash instead. And you can also at the end whisk in some crumbled dulse and some extra virgin olive oil, and just a bit. You're not going to use a lot. Today, as I said for the previous juice, I am going to not use those ingredients from my juice, and I am just going to show you how these juices are made. Okay, and for this juice, you would simply add the ingredients of celery and squash, and you could also add carrots if you want to, but I am not going to use carrots. I am just going to use more squash, and I am also going to add some extra virgin olive oil, or you can use hemp oil as well, and then I'm going to add some crumbled dulse as well. Okay, so I'm going to take the celery, because the celery is softer than the squash, of course. And for this recipe, you would use about 3 stalks of celery. So I'm taking celery and remember to always, have fun, and a lot of times you're just going to be eyeballing it, and that's how you really learn, because you're taking risks, you're experimenting, you're being creative, and that's where the most amazing things happen. And since I'm not using carrots and I'm using more squash, I'm going to take a good handful of the squash. A real good handful, like about 2 handfuls of the squash. And we are going to juice that up. All right. Okay, so let's try it now. All right. And this is a nice soft green juice. A nice soft green, Right, so let's try this together. And this is simply celery with squash, and you can definitely add carrots if you want. Again, I wanted to make it non-hybrid today, so I wanted to just make sure I use squash, and I know that I'm using celery, but if you want to use cucumber instead, you can, if you would like. And so again, it's a nice soft and pleasant taste of the squash. Celery is pretty neutral, And so, I don't think I'm going to add the extra virgin olive oil and the crumbled dulse. And, but I would recommend it if you are breastfeeding to definitely go ahead and use it sparingly. Again, for this recipe, use about a tablespoon of each. And yeah, so I'm so grateful to share these lovely couple of recipes with you. And it's definitely, breastfeeding is a beautiful experience. And that experience is one of the most profound experiences I've ever experienced. It's just so divine, to experience breastfeeding and to find creative ways to nurture that for you and your family and your baby is a beautiful thing. And I am always grateful to be able to contribute to that. That is the driving force behind why I do what I do, because I wanted to share things that inspired me on my journey and that I thought were amazing, that I saw other people do and that I decided to do as well, and I just want to share that. And so as always, continue to be blessed and be true to yourself and be well. Peace, my divine nurturers and divines.